Vermont police are looking for a violent serial offender that at one point they actually managed to pull over, but then let drive away because they were too scared to deal with him, which I've never heard of this before, but it actually happened. So this is Matthew Kaigle, a 33-year-old, was wanted by Burlington police for slapping a construction worker and threatening to stab him. The worker was a flagger who had tried to direct Kaigle's car along with other traffic. So Kaigle drove to a supermarket, then drove back to the construction workers, slapping the flagger, threatening to punch a different construction worker. He was wielding a hunting knife, the police said, and threatening to stab both of the workers. If you don't already have a crystal clear idea of what this guy looks like, here is a picture for you, and it's exactly what you would have expected. So anyway, soon after those incidents, he drove by the same stop, seemingly returning to the scene of his multiple crimes, and was pulled over by the cops. But he soon drove away and the cops didn't chase him, saying Kaigle refused to exit his vehicle after being told multiple times he was under arrest. Officers did not pursue Kaigle due to his unpredictable and violent history.
I would think that would be the reason to pursue him as opposed to letting him go.
Yeah. They were weighing different options. Now he does have a long history of at least 24 encounters with police officers, and apparently you can just do that and you'll just keep going if you're in Vermont. Let's see, he had a number of convictions, including felony charges, multiple offenses for violating court orders for parole. He was also listed by police as threatening another person with a sledgehammer in July, so doesn't have a favorite weapon, he'll use whatever's around. Accused of punching and kicking a man several times, leaving him unconscious in Battery Park.
Jesus.
After his arrest, the police began investigating the incident as a hate crime. They say Kaigle has displayed many violent tendencies towards other members of the public in recent months, causing some to not comply with investigations due to fear of retaliation. Get him off the streets, what are you doing? Who else is allowed to do one of these things, let alone over and over and over again? This is like a character from a bad TV show.
Yeah, as Kaigle is doing his exercises all across town, they're not getting him at all. It's unbelievable. So guys, look, now let's turn serious here because there's a number of important issues that this reveals. First of all, I'm not sure I've ever seen a case of white privilege this extreme. Let's remind you that Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old boy in Cleveland, was shot in 2 seconds. He had a toy gun. Police did not ask him if it was a toy. They didn't ask him anything. They just drove straight up to him and shot him and killed him. And that happens all the time. And yes, of course, Tamir was black. And so we've shown you about half a dozen times where police have, the ones that are on video, police shooting African Americans who are unarmed and running away. And what is that excuse they use? Well, they were kind of a danger to the community at large. Does this guy look like he might be a danger to the community at large? I mean, I'm not sure I've ever heard of a case of a guy who's more clearly a danger to the community at large. Sledgehammers, knives, all these different weapons. The guy's probably got a crossbow. And the cops are like, he's so dangerous, we don't want to try to apprehend him.
What is he, Batman?
What or the Joker, or what? Like, this is insane. And so black folks get shot in the back when they don't have weapons. This guy doesn't even get arrested because he has too many weapons. Look, I'm gonna give a slight caveat here. Maybe what Vermont is doing is saying, hey, we do too many chases and that endangers the public more.
Sure.
And there's a better way to bring this guy in. If they do that uniformly for everybody, okay. In this case, it seems a bit extreme. You really got to take this guy in pretty much immediately, right? But maybe it's justifiable if you can show me that it's consistent. But nationwide, it is not anywhere near consistent. It's totally apples and oranges. And it's how can you be an African American in this country and not get incredibly frustrated as you're giving speeches to your kids? Now remember, if it's a police officer, don't even smile at him the wrong way. Don't do this, don't do that. Don't put your hands up, don't put them down, don't put them in your pockets. Meanwhile, this guy's chopping people to pieces all over town, and they won't even arrest him. Why hasn't this guy been in jail already? Why doesn't he have a 20-year jail sentence? I just don't get it.
I mean, the entire time I was reading this story, just ACAB was going over and over in my head because it's so absurd. The police, the reasons they listed they didn't want to arrest him are the exact reasons why he should be arrested. You know, they're saying, oh, we can't detain him because he has a history of violence and being unpredictable. So instead, we'll just let him loose in Vermont to do violence unpredictably. It's absolutely mind-boggling, but and what you were getting at, Cenk, what the story really shows is the massive disparity in the way that Black and brown people are treated by police versus white people are treated by police. Because usually when we're hearing police talk about how they were afraid for their lives because of a suspect, it's after the fact and they're saying that to justify them murdering them if the suspect was Black or brown. But here the police are using their fear as a means to justify them doing nothing. So it just seems like maybe all of those police that shot Black and brown people for just existing didn't have to do that. Didn't have to be afraid for their life, but definitely didn't have to do that. And I'm sick and tired of hearing them justify their actions. It's just a system that is ingrained in white supremacy.
So look, I remember so many of the cases where Black men in this country were unjustly killed by cops. But Eric Garner jumped to mind because they said, well, not at that time, but at an earlier time, he was selling loose cigarettes. So loose cigarettes will get you killed if you're a Black man, but chopping people up doesn't even get you arrested if you're white. And so I'm hoping this isn't uniform, but honestly, in today's show alone, we have several stories of white people committing crimes, threatening crimes, over-the-top crimes, and nobody ever does anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe, I don't know, I'm not white, and I suspect if you're poor and white, this has not really been your experience. The cops are probably happy to arrest you as well, right? But I don't know, maybe if you're middle class and upper class white, you've known all along that the law doesn't apply to you.
Yeah.
And that you never get arrested. I mean, I'm just stunned by it. As a person who isn't white, I'm like, is that how they live? You know that old skit they had, I think it might've been Chappelle, where he goes around as a white guy and then everybody's like, hey, welcome, how are you? And etc. Maybe you could add to that, he goes around like stabbing people. They're like, it's okay, it's fine, right? And guys, remember, again, across all races, and you could all relate to this, guys are sitting in jail for smoking marijuana. For a long, long time, there's one guy in I think the Northwest who's got a life sentence, right? Meanwhile, this guy's going around with every weapon you can imagine and actually hitting people and hurting them significantly. And they're like, nope, no jail time at all. Just walk around, do as you like.
Exactly.
Unreal.
Yeah, and so look, as of right now, they still haven't found the guy. I've been like looking all day to see if they'll eventually get him, but they haven't, and they tell people not to approach him, which, I mean, why should you have to if the cops won't even approach him? That seems unfair to expect you to. And yeah, look, it is possible that they have turned over a new leaf and they just don't want to use any more violence than is necessary. But we've never seen any evidence that would give us reason to extend goodwill towards any cops anywhere, basically. So I'm not gonna believe that, especially when a casual Google for Burlington, Vermont police brutality brings up tons of hits. So they know how to use violence when they want to. And I would love for cops to not do that, but as Cenk said, we'll see how this is doled out and to whom and who not to.
Yeah, one of our members, Manimal, just wrote in, it was Eddie Murphy on SNL. I wasn't sure if it was him or Chappelle. Thank you for pointing that out. I love doing this show with the members, tyt.com/join. Last thing, guys, if they say this guy was too dangerous to arrest, well, what does that tell you about all the guys that they shot and killed? Apparently they weren't too dangerous to engage in, but they were shot and killed anyway. But a guy who's actually dangerous, hands off. So that's also very telling.
Yeah.
I just really quick want to know, if you live in Vermont and you see this man, are you supposed to call 911? Are the police gonna come and high five him? Like, are they actually gonna come apprehend him if you see him? What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, and all right, fine, we'll end on a funny note from one of our members as well. I Am Sock wrote in, you'd think a guy named Kaigles would have more control.